how did the Gold Coast become a city of the kindness movement? And how can Perth do the same?
Well, I'm meeting with Lisa Scafidi tomorrow, actually, and she had already had it on her agenda to do that before the, call it a kerfuffle. And what the City of Gold Coast did was in 2012, they took the first step. I met with the mayor. He drafted a mayoral minute, and that mayoral minute saw them write a declaration of support for a kinder world, and that was a unanimous motion that was carried, and appoint Glenn Tozer, Councillor Tozer, as the council's goodwill ambassador. And with that, they then set out to follow the KPIs. They have kindness awards, they engage schools and businesses, and they do other things within the community. One of the things that really caught our attention was how they introduced these roll-out mats that go down to the beach to give access for people in wheelchairs. Simple idea, but absolutely brilliant and hadn't been done before. And they have a sustainable city process, and they do a whole bunch of other things. So we looked at all this, and it wasn't just a once-off. They celebrate World Kindness Day, they promote it, they have it on their website, and Glenn goes out and physically talks to organisations about this. So it wasn't 2013 they did it. Yeah, it was nice. 2014 they did something else. Well, that's pretty good. 2015, 16, 17. Time. It's time. So I was very proud to be given the opportunity to present their bid, and very pleased that they were actually got resolved unanimously by international delegates from around the world that applauded what they were doing. I then came back to Australia, and on the 14th of November I presented to the council, and I said to them, it's not what you think. It doesn't say you're the kindest city in the world. It's not that. What it's telling you is that we're applauding you for having the courage of your convictions to walk the talk. It's a double-edged sword. And it's not just for you, but it's for the leaders of the future to maintain this, so that others will be inspired to aspire to reach your goals. So I'm happy for the sister city programs to have a friendly rivalry, to try and outdo each other in putting kindness on the agenda.
I think it'd be a better poll to have, rather than the most popular city or the most livable city, the kindest city. That'd be definitely on my agenda to visit.
Well, there is an opportunity when we get enough cities. The countries can look at which city do they feel has had the best impact, but there will be an index. Now, this is more than a 360-degree index, because it reaches out to visitors, it reaches out to families, it reaches out to employers and communities. So when a company comes on board, we would hope that they would also undertake a kindness index before the campaign. No one's looking to crucify you. And when I spoke to Singapore about their national index, they were very concerned for two reasons. One, it kept on dropping, and dropped 3 points or something each year. And two, they found that 99% of respondents, when they answered the question on page 27, are you kind, said they were. But on page 28, when they said, has anyone been kind to you, 98% of respondents said no. And I said, well, I don't think it's a problem with the answers or the index. I think what it's telling you is that people have forgotten to recognise kindness. So that's when we developed the kindness cards, which were specifically designed to acknowledge an act of kindness. In fact, I might give you one now and show your viewers. What I'll do is I'll get a Gold Coast card. There's a City of Gold Coast card. And what this is a miniature platform of collaboration, because it can have 1, 2 and 3 logos on it. It's got a unique identifier. That when you go to the website, you enter that number, 000549. That's a good card, because that's been around the world 4 times. And you'll see a number of stories in different countries that the card has collected as it gets passed on from one person to another. And you'll see it's tracked on Google Maps. So there's a red line, or many red lines in that particular case, showing you where the card's been. So I would say to you, Bass, I was given something. I was told to hold on to it, but not to keep it. I was told to, at an appropriate time, if I found somebody deserving because of their kindness, to acknowledge their kindness, enter the story on the card, and then pass it on to them, asking them to do the same. So we launched these in 2012 after we had the scholarship from the University of Sydney for a Kindness in Sport scholarship. And I gave out a card to a friend of mine. I didn't hear from the card until 2 years later. And I get the email, because every time a new story gets entered, it automatically sends an email to all the previous recipients to say, here's the link, go to this link, see where it is, and the act of kindness that's been captured. So even though you've given the card up, it stays in touch with you. And you can then share it on social media. So 2 years ago, and Craig hasn't registered his card. He's been very slack. I keep on harassing him about it. And then one day I get a link, and it's from Craig's card. And I'll tell you the backstory is that Craig is an ex-soldier, and he was in the national water polo team for the Defence Force, and his glory days were over. I mean, let's face it, Craig, your glory days are over. But on this occasion, he had received a call from his mates. They were getting the band back together. So all the team from the water polo were coming back together to participate in a masters competition, which way they were unlikely to win. I mean, these guys are 40 plus years old and they're putting baby seats in the car, but they're all living in different parts of the country, but they decide, after they get a hall pass from their wife, to come together and give it a shot. They give it a shot and they win. So what do? Celebrate. They go to the pub, what was it? Newport Arms, in Sydney's northern beaches. And when they're there, they have a beer, and 2 and 3 and 4, and the filters begin to drop off and their volume starts to go up, and maybe there's an F-bomb drop. But needless to say, got to the point, it got the manager's attention. The manager comes out, speaks to the young girl behind the bar and says, look, don't worry, Sarah, I'm going to kick these guys out, but I've got to take care of something downstairs first. He goes out, and Sarah decides on her own that she'll go and have a word to the guys. So she went up to them and said, listen, boys, you're about to be turfed out of here, but if you pull your head in and you kick it back a couple of notches and promise me you'll behave, I'll put a good word in for you. So they were embarrassed, as they should be, and they behaved themselves. Closing time came, it was incident free, and next thing you know, they're leaving, and one of them turns around, Craig turns around and decides that it was time to dust off that card in his wallet. And he went up to Sarah and he said, listen, what you did for us was pretty special, because we had a memory today. We don't get out much and we don't get to see each other, and it was incredibly special. It wouldn't have been as good had we have had them packed in early. And I want to apologise again, but I also want to thank you. And I was given something, I was told to hold on to it, but not to keep it. I was told to when I recognised somebody deserving, because of their act of kindness, to pass it on. And this little card is doing the trick. So he passes the card to Sarah, and she was quite touched. And she took the card and she looked at it and she looked at him and she said, thank you very much. She kind of teared up, and he left. And I knew about that because I got the email to say, finally, thank God, about time, Craig.
2 years later.
And how did you do it? You upset the stuff. Bloody Craig. But anyway, it was done. I was relieved. 2 weeks later, bling, another email comes in from the same card number. It's Sarah, and she's registering her card. But here's what she said. Just registering my card before I pass it on to someone, but before I do, I want to acknowledge the guys that gave me this card. I really appreciate it, more so than they could possibly realise. They didn't know it was going to be my last day at work, for one. In fact, they didn't know that I've been going through a really hard time. They didn't know it was going to be my last day, period. because I decided that not only would I end my job, I would end my life. But when I received that little card, it gave me a sense of hope. And that's the power of acknowledgement. That's the power of seeing the unseen. And that young lady volunteers for us now.
That's amazing. I mean, the power of kindness, it can definitely save a life. I've been a big fan of kindness for a long time. I totally agree. It's an incredible story.
Oh, thanks, Bass. Yeah, well, you know, it's around us. And what I'd say to people is kindness is like buying a Volvo. You're nodding, yeah, because you know what I'm talking about? No.
I'm not a big fan of Volvo, but I know they're safe.
No, it's not about that. How many Volvos did you see today? You don't know.
0.
You don't know. But I guarantee you, if you bought one yesterday, you would have noticed them everywhere.